Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we delve into a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is February 8th. On this day in 2017, a heartbreaking case sent shockwaves through the state of Ohio: the murder of Reagan Tokes. Reagan was a young woman full of promise who was just months away from graduating college and starting her new life. But in a single night, that life was stolen from her by a predator who never should have been on the streets. This case didn't just devastate her family and friends, it exposed serious flaws in Ohio's parole system, leading to major reforms in how violent offenders are monitored. Today, we're going to talk about who Reagan was, what happened to her that tragic night, and how her death led to real, lasting change. But before we talk about the crime, let's talk about Reagan Delaney Tokes. Not just as a victim, but as the person she was before that night. Reagan was born on March 13, 1995 in Edgewood, Kentucky, and grew up in Maumee, Ohio. She was the oldest daughter of Lisa McCrae Tokes and Toby Tokes, and a loving big sister to Mackenzie. Everyone who knew Reagan described her the same way: vibrant, kind, and full of life. She was smart, driven, and had a compassionate heart. In high school, she excelled academically and was actively involved in her community. When she graduated in 2013, she headed to The Ohio State University in Columbus, where she majored in psychology. Reagan had big dreams. She wanted to help people, to make a real difference in the world. She was set to graduate in just a few months, in May 2017, and she was looking forward to what was going to come next. Like many college students, she worked part-time. Her job was at Bodega, a popular restaurant and bar in the Short North Arts District. It was a normal, busy college life until February 8th, 2017, when everything changed. February 8th started out just like any other day for Reagan. She went to class, she hung out with friends, and then she later went to her shift at work. Her shift at Bodega ended at 9:45 p.m. She walked out of the restaurant and headed to her car, completely unaware that somebody was watching her. A man named Brian Goolsby. Brian Goolsby was a 29-year-old convicted felon who had just been released from prison 3 months prior after serving a 6-year sentence for robbery and attempted rape. He was living at a halfway house and was under the supervision of the Ohio Adult Parole Authority. Despite being equipped with a GPS ankle monitor, Goolsby had spent his short time out of prison committing a series of robberies, crimes that, at that point, the police and parole board had no knowledge of. That night, as Reagan walked to her car, Goolsby ambushed her at gunpoint. He forced her into the driver's seat and made her drive to multiple ATMs, withdrawing a total of $60. Only $60. After taking her money, Goolsby forced Reagan to drive to Scioto Grove Metro Park, a secluded area about 12 miles south of Columbus. Once there, he sexually assaulted her and then made her walk into a field. Once they got to the field, without any hesitation, he shot her twice in the head, killing her instantly. Leaving her lifeless body in the cold, dark field, Goolsby stole her car. He later ditched it in a residential area before heading home like nothing had ever happened. The next morning, February 9th, 2017, a passerby walking through Scioto Grove Metro Park discovered Reagan's body lying in the field. Police arrived immediately and secured the scene. Then the investigation started. This crime shocked the community, not just because of its brutality, but because it seemed so random. Who would have done this, and why? Detectives immediately began piecing together Reagan's last known movements. They were able to obtain security footage from Bodega, nearby ATMs, and parking lots, where they were able to spot a man matching Goolsby's description. So once they had Brian Goldsby's name, they were able to start looking into him and that GPS monitor. And that's where the real breakthrough in this case came from, that ankle monitor. The data from his tracker placed him at bodega at the time Reagan left work, each ATM where she was forced to withdraw cash, and the exact spot in Scioto Grove Metro Park where her body was found. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Just 3 days after Reagan's murder, February 11th, 2017, Brian Goldsby was arrested. He was charged with aggravated murder, kidnapping, rape, robbery, tampering with evidence, and possessing a firearm as a felon. His trial began in March 2018, and the prosecution laid out a chilling, detailed case, including the GPS data that showed Goldsby's movements throughout the night and the security footage that linked him to the ATMs. But the clincher? DNA evidence confirmed that he had assaulted Reagan. Backed into a corner, the defense admitted that Goldsby had abducted and robbed Reagan, but claimed that an unknown accomplice was the one who actually murdered her. But the jury was not buying it. After just 6 hours of deliberation, Goldsby was convicted on all counts. Instead of receiving the death penalty, he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Reagan's murder exposed major failures in Ohio's criminal justice system, particularly in how parolees were monitored. Despite wearing a GPS ankle bracelet, Goldsby had been committing crimes for weeks before he killed Reagan, and no one even noticed. If you listen to my other podcast and then they were gone, you know that this is a systemic problem across the country. But Ohio decided to do something about it, thanks to Reagan's family. In 2018, Ohio lawmakers passed the Reagan Tokes Act, which included stricter sentencing laws, meaning certain violent felonies now come with indeterminate sentences, meaning that offenders are not automatically released at the end of their term. This gives flexibility based on an inmate's behavior and their rehabilitation progress. It also includes better GPS monitoring. Parole officers must now actively track and respond to GPS alerts, which it's kind of insane that they weren't already doing that. But that goes back to that systemic problem I was talking about. In a lot of jurisdictions, they simply don't. The act also included risk assessments. Before releasing violent offenders, the state must assess the danger they pose to the community. This was a bittersweet victory for Reagan's family. Nothing, of course, could bring her back or fill the hole that was left in their lives, but this law ensures that fewer violent criminals slip through the cracks. Beyond the law, Reagan's parents have worked tirelessly to honor her memory. They founded the Reagan Tokes Memorial Foundation, which is dedicated to supporting students and advocating for safety initiatives. The foundation provides scholarships to deserving students and promotes legislative changes aimed at protecting others from similar fates. Her mother, Lisa, has said, quote, "We couldn't save Reagan, but if we can save just one more person, then her legacy will live on," end quote. The murder of Reagan Tokes was senseless and devastating, but through justice, legislation, and advocacy, her story has created real and lasting change. Brian Goldsby is behind bars, and real change has come to the system that failed Reagan. And through her foundation, her light continues to shine. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found this story compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review us. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day, True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!